Okay, so we're all set?
Yes.
Thanks, Steve.
No problem.
Thank you, Steve.
All right. Okay, it being 6 p.m. on Tuesday, December 1st, 2020, we will begin the meeting for the Committee of Ways and Means. All votes will be by roll call. Panelists and counselors, if you would like to speak, please use the raise hand function. Clerk Semino, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Council Barica,
Here.
Council Ryan,
Here.
Council Connors,
Here.
Council Flaherty,
Here.
Council Sasha,
Here.
all present.
Thank you. All right. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of October 20th, 2020?
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. Clerk Semino, roll call vote, please.
Council Barica,
Yes.
Council Ryan,
Here. Aye.
Council Connors,
Aye.
Council Flaherty,
Yes.
Council Sasha,
Yes.
all in favor.
Thank you. All right. We have no old business this evening. So we're going to move on to new business. And if it's okay with the counselors, I would like to take these motions out of order so that we do the 20078 last, because it is dependent on the prior two orders. Any objections to that approach? Okay. All right. So in that case, let's take up 20076 Mayor FY 2021 Supplemental Appropriation number 1, or take up any action relative thereto. Is there anyone from the mayor's office who would like to speak on this?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. On behalf of the mayor's office, I also would note we have with us this evening Ed Spellman, Director of Municipal Finance. And for matters later on the agenda, we also have Bob Brinkmann with us, as well as the Board of Assessors. And then we have Jim Arsenal, Director of DPW, and Darren Brown, Director over at the golf course. By way of brief introduction on this request, I think as the committee is well aware, we have relied on proceeds from the sale of the property at 44 Allen Street. However, because the funds have not been received, in order to set the tax rate for this fiscal year, we have to address the deficit in that sale. And so what we are asking for this evening is approval to transfer from free cash the 1.3 million anticipated in the sale of the Allen Street project, so that we can close out that item and set the tax rate for this fiscal year. We have awarded the sale, as we've talked about in the past, for a total of 1.5 million with payment due upon certain milestones in the negotiations of the sale, of the purchase and sale, excuse me, which is ongoing and set to be concluded by the end of next week. So we'll have a sense of the timing on that item and when we'll realize those funds. But as I said, and as has been the case in prior years, in order to set the tax rate, we do have to close out this issue, which is the reason for the transfer.
Thank you very much, Solicitor Taub. Are there any counselors who have questions on this item? Counselor Connors.
Hi, so I just have a couple of questions. So we're going to take the 1.3 from free cash, and then when you get the 1.3, you're going to put it back in free cash. And then what happens to the other $2 million? I assume that dumps into the free cash as well when you get the final 1.5 sale?
The additional 200,000, you mean?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Did I say 2 million?
I would love it to be an additional 2 million, Dr. Connors.
Yes.
Maybe if we put that out into the universe, it'll come from somewhere else. That's my understanding, yes.
So the additional 200,000 would drop to the free cash as well when it comes in.
That's right.
Okay, and then I know we have to take care of this deficit in order to do the tax, or in order to do the classification. Does the billboard deficit also have to be dealt with, or is that a separate issue altogether?
That was a separate issue that DOR did not require us to address in order to set the tax rate.
Okay, so that's a non-issue when we set the tax rate.
Correct.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Question. Any other counselors have questions on this matter? Okay, and I just want to also recognize our town auditor who is here with us
Oh.
this evening. Oh, sorry, did you have something, Solicitor Taub?
No, just my apologies that I didn't
Yep.
mention that Shawn was
Nope.
here.
So thank you for joining us, Shawn. Do you have anything, Shawn, you'd like to add on this item?
Yeah, just a question to Nicole and or Ed, and it's more of an accounting question. There is a separate opinion that perhaps this sale of land doesn't go directly to the general fund and in turn closes out to free cash, but perhaps has to go to a receipt reserve special revenue fund. Ed, I don't know if you've talked to DOR about this or have any insight on it. I'm just looking for some clarification.
As I had looked at the statute, and again, we had put funds from the sale of a parcel of land back several years ago. We had put it into that receipts reserved and then taken the funds out of it for a specific purpose. I've not spoken to DOR to get clarification on it. If they have to go in, then what we would do is submit an article to the council to transfer the money out of that receipt reserved account and bring it into the general fund. I think that would be the cleanest and clearest way to do it. And I don't have an answer for you tonight.
Okay. No, that's okay. Thank you, Ed.
I think the idea is ultimately it'll end up back in the general fund. It's a matter of whether it goes straight there or has to go through the reserve fund.
Right, because if it does go to that reserve fund, it has to get reappropriated and voted by town council and all that good stuff.
Thanks for clarifying that, gentlemen. Any other counselors have questions on 20076, the supplemental appropriation? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion?
So can I just make a motion to make a favorable recommendation to the full council for 20776? Because I can't find my package. Is that a good enough motion right there?
Do you need me to read it, Sue?
You want me
I
you
can
want me
read
to
it.
read it?
Counselor Connors, do you have it?
Yep. Well, I have what's written in the document. I assume that's satisfactory, right, Sue? A motion that the sum of $1,300,000 be transferred from free cash for the purpose of replacing the revenue source of sale of town-owned land that did not take place in time to be used for the FY 2021 budget.
Is there a
Second.
second? Thank you. Sue, roll call vote, please.
Counselor Berica,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan, Counselor Ryan,
Looks like we lost video.
Aye.
There he is.
I don't know if you're waiting for me because I just froze. Aye, if you were.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Counselor Connors,
Aye.
Counselor Flaherty,
Yes.
Counselor Sasha,
Yes.
all in favor.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to 20077, Mayor, adoption of deficit amortization schedule for FY 2020 deficit or take up any action relative thereto. Is there anyone in the mayor's office who would like to speak on this?
Thank you. I know that is a mouthful. Yes, talking about what has fast become one of my favorite topics for discussion, the golf course. This motion is before you very much for the same reasons as the prior. We have to close out the deficit in order to set the tax rate. But as was provided for in your packet, the governor passed legislation that included a provision allowing municipalities to amortize debt over the next 3 fiscal years for repayment of any deficits resulting from COVID. So as everybody here knows, the golf course was required to close for a period of 53 days back from March through the beginning of May, and as a result incurred a deficit of about $346,000. When the golf course was allowed to reopen on May 6th with limited service and limited kind of operations, we began to see a significant increase in revenue, which is great, and an increase in patronage to the golf course. We've provided updates over time, but our most recent update through the close of November has continued to follow the trend. November 2020 nearly doubled revenue from November 2019. And as of now, the golf course has made 73.42% of its overall budget just 5 months into the year. So, you know, with Darren here and Jim, I want to commend them and their staff, and Justina, the food and beverage manager. You know, I can't say enough what a phenomenal job they've done despite all of the difficulties presented by COVID as it relates to the operations. I think we've seen a lot of first-time players at the golf course, which I believe are going to turn into a significant number of repeat players at the golf course. And so I'm confident that their success is going to continue. The simulators are up, and the simulator league will begin after the holidays. So, you know, hoping that we continue to have good weather through the month of December. The outdoor play will remain open, but then will close in order to preserve the course in the winter months. And then the simulator leagues will pick up. If you haven't utilized the simulators, I would encourage you to do so. They're a lot of fun. But going back to the deficit, what we're asking the committee to do this evening is to authorize a deficit amortization schedule that will allow for the payment of the fiscal year 20 deficit through fiscal 21, 22, and 23 in near equal installments. And that will be paid, you know, out of the revenue earned by the golf course, which we think is going to be pretty significant, and be able to cover the debt without any, you know, subsequent deficits based on the earnings they've seen so far. We're also able to do this without incurring any interest or additional costs, and without having to go into free cash to cover the prior year's shortfall. And again, this is allowed by, it's Chapter 53 of the Acts of 2020, passed by the governor in, I want to say April of this year.
Thank you very much. All right. Are there any counselors, or Mr. Brown? I don't know if you wanted to speak at all, or we can start with questions.
If I could just say a couple words, just to, you know, thank Nicole and Jim and Ed, especially Nicole and Ed early on. We were given 48 hours notification for the golf course to open by the state. And then we had a 24-hour notice of when golf carts could go up. That was only under ADA protocols. And I'm calling and texting Nicole on a Sunday and saying, hey, how do we handle this? And then we had to do online payments, had to be processed. So I'm scrambling with Ed and Barbara Walls and the treasurer's office on how to handle all the prepayments and then the refunds and everything else that came up. So there is no way we could have done it without them. They were fantastic in giving us guidance. We were actually, and Ed will probably tell you this, we were on the trail to have a really good fiscal year closing out June. We were ahead in our numbers going back into the fall. The simulators last season were up 20% over the prior year. Justina and food and beverage had so many bookings that had to be canceled that really kind of left us scrambling in that end. We had to make a decision to maintain the golf course and have it ready to open. We had to spend the money in order to preserve that. I thought that we provided a good product this year. Our tee sheets were full and solid. We had almost 40 employees at one point this year, but only 3 of them were maintenance full-time. So we really subsisted this year on part-time staff, and knock on wood, we had no COVID issues, no COVID shutdowns. Certainly being an outside environment was very helpful to that, but having 20-something college kids on staff during the summer was a worry. But everybody came through, and we were very happy with the way things went, and things still seem to be going well. I'm appreciative of Ed and Nicole trying to get this to work for us. I think in the end, it's the best way for us to go. And we're certainly going to be in a position to cover those payments. And you know, I don't think 2021 can be any worse.
All right,
Knock on
thank you.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Do any of the counselors have questions on this issue? Counselor Connors?
So I just have a couple of questions. So if over the next fiscal year, 21, 22, and 23, for some reason, the golf course cannot make payments, I assume the money has to come out of somewhere. Where would it come out of?
Ed, do you want to take that?
This amount will be built into the budget for fiscal years 22 and 23. So when the budgets are presented to you, it will include a line item. My thought is probably in the debt section for the repayment of this deficit amount.
And that should come out of the golf funds, correct?
That will be baked into the golf operating budget and will come out of the golf funds, correct?
And if the golf operating budget, I guess, isn't able to cover the cost, it would have to come out of free cash or be supplemented somewhere, correct?
Yes, that's correct. The operating budget could be, the other expenses could be reduced at that point.
And then just Nicole, you had said in the last one, I should have asked it last time, but you had said are these the only two things that DOR requested that you correct or do something with in order to pass the tax classification? There's nothing else, right?
No, that's it, which is why with these two, we're ready to.
Good to go.
Mhm.
Okay, that's all I had. Thanks.
Thank you,
The
Counselor
other
Connors.
thing, if I may, Madam Chairwoman, just to add, you know, in the event that we want to expedite the schedule or change the payments, we certainly can do that as well, but we would have to come back to committee and the council for approval to change the schedule if we deviate from what it's been set at this evening.
So if they had a really, really, really good year and could put more money into it,
Yeah.
then that's what we would
Yeah.
strive to do?
Yes.
Doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Shasha?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Actually, that last point just answered my question, so I think I'm all set. Thank you.
Any other counselors? Counselor Ryan?
Thank you. I just want to say that great job to Darren Brown up at the golf course this year and all the issues they had to deal with up there given the pandemic. Golf in general, you can't even get a tee time in around here because everybody wants to go out and play golf because it's like the great escape from your house to go out on the golf course and play golf and kind of get away for 4 or 5 hours. And it's so I really think that we're going to continue to see the golf course doing really well. And as long as the weather's mild, people will still play golf for the rest of this year. And then in the spring, I think you're going to see people not being able to wait to get back out there in the spring to play again. So I fully support this. I hope no one's short-sighted on this and says, oh, you know, the golf course having trouble again. It's beyond their control what's going on with this. And I see very good things coming in the future. And I'd like to ask Darren if they can come back and give us an update when you have on the simulators and how that's going. I'd be very interested to see when you get enough time and enough sample size there to come back and give us an idea how that's going. That'd be great. So good luck.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you very much. Yeah, I absolutely will provide that. We've been busy installing some HEPA filter retrofits to our HVA system for the winter. We did purchase 2 HEPA filter portable units. The interest in the simulators this year has been huge. We've had a lot of people reaching out to us. It's a $75,000 revenue for us over the course of the winter. And then Justine and her staff do bring in I think probably about another 10,000 in food and beverage revenue. So we should see that along with that. The only thing that's going to inhibit us is if things get bad and we have to have a shutdown. But I don't foresee anything getting in the way of a successful winter again. There's certainly interest has certainly been there. But thank you,
That
Counselor.
was me crossing my fingers, not doing anything.
Thank
On
you.
the record, Charlie. cross my fingers.
I was like, I hope that looked okay on the camera there.
Shawn, did you have anything to add or ask on this motion before we close out the discussion?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. And I just like to also, I should have thanked Shawn earlier for your insights in all the information you provided ahead of this meeting tonight. I know I found it extremely helpful, and we really value your expertise, advice, and all the help you provide to this committee and the full council. So thank you, Shawn.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, seeing none, do we have a motion for 20077?
Make a motion for item 20077 that the town council adopt the following deficit amortization schedule for the payment of FY 2020 golf deficit in the amount of $345,958.15 without further appropriation. FY 21, $115,319.38. FY 22, $115,319.38. And FY 23, $115,319.39.
Second, thank you.
Thank
You're
you. Clerk Semino, roll call vote, please.
Counselor Barrica,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Counselor Connors,
Aye.
Counselor Flaherty,
Yes.
Counselor Sasha,
Yes.
all in favor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to now go back to 20078. Mayor, the tax rate classification or take up any action relative thereto. Solicitor Taub, would you like to speak on behalf of the mayor's office?
Very briefly on this one, because we have many experts in the room, or in the virtual room, I suppose. The committee, I believe, all received, in addition to the tax rate classification motions, a memorandum detailing items that we are asking for your favorable recommendation on this evening. I know that we did answer some questions in advance of tonight, so I will just highlight for you some of the items that I think are worth noting here. I think that we are fortunate that we are in a position that our property values here in town continue to increase while still being able to maintain one of the lowest tax rates in the South Shore and in our surrounding communities. The first item that we're asking for a favorable recommendation is that we maintain the current residential shift, which allows for basically a shift of some of the burden over to commercial properties, therefore lessening it on our residential properties. And just from a monetary perspective, what that does is it saves the residential taxpayer over $100 a month, or just under $1,300 a year in total. And compared to last year's average residential tax bill, we're seeing an increase this year of about $242, which in large part is due to the increase in residential values as they compare to the commercial and industrial values in town. And so, kind of with that general overview, I'll turn it over to Ed and Bob and members of the board who are with us this evening for any additional kind of commentary, or would be happy to open it up to the committee for questions.
Thank you, Solicitor Taub. Ed, did you want to add anything, or Mr. Brinkman?
Bob, I'll defer to you.
Sure, I'll jump in. Just a couple of general comments. I think Nicole touched on most. We have to remind ourselves that the values are set pre-pandemic. So as of January 1st of 2020, so as much as it was a real challenge for us to go out and do inspections this year during the pandemic, we're really doing retro values. So I want to put in the back of your minds that 2022 is going to be a challenge for all of us because we're seeing more increases on the residential side and more than likely significant decreases on the commercial side. So we'll see what the balance is and how things work out then. But I just want you to keep the timeline relative to the market of 2019. So we use sales and market conditions of 2019 when we determine these values.
Thank you, Mr. Brinkmann. Okay, I also want to thank all of you. I know I sent in a slew of questions before the holiday and appreciate the thorough responses in return. So thank you for that. And I do want to open it up to the counselors for questions. Counselor Ryan.
Thank you. Bob, on that issue, I'd be very interested to see and hear how the values of the commercial and residential continue to change this year and what we're going to look at for setting the tax rate next year. And if we can get that information and kind of, I mean, we'll get through this tonight and maybe, but get updates on that as we go. So everybody's kind of aware of the situation and how that might impact taxes in the town of Braintree.
Agreed, Counselor. Thank you. We talked about that today. You know, we would like to probably queue things up that much earlier next year and communicate some of these obstacles that we might be facing before Thanksgiving and well before actually to have some of the discussions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Ryan. Counselor Sciascia.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Similar to Counselor Ryan's point, I was going to ask about the residential exemption, and definitely not for this year. You pointed out that it's a very detailed analysis. I'm wondering if it would be worth it to do that analysis before this point next year, and at least just know what that would mean for the residents and whether that's something that we should consider.
Excellent point, Counselor. I think, you know, on the surface, we see residential exemption and it can make sense in some communities. I did some review of it in anticipation of this hearing. The problem we have here in Braintree is we're about, you know, roughly 97% owner occupied. So because any exemption would be borne by the residential class, would be shifting some of the burden actually to some other residential homeowners. So if you have a property worth, I think it was $514,700 this year, you would start to see an increase in your tax bill, even though you're a owner-occupied resident of the town. So it's very difficult to really. I think it's about 40% of residential property owners would see an increase in taxes. But as we see more, if we see more apartments, we see more shifts and such that might make more sense to at least help the other 60% of the taxpayers. So we'll review it annually. I think we should review all these matters annually, but it's difficult to present to some residents that you would see an increase as a owner occupied property owner.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand that.
Sure.
Yep. And then I just have one technical question on the open space discount. Now I assume that that would apply only to an entire parcel that's used for open space. So not, you know, a commercial parcel that's required to have 30% open space under the zoning. The discount would not apply to that prorated piece of the parcel, right?
Well, yes and no. The fact we don't classify a class 2 open space. So, you know, we have vacant property, but we don't have anything that we've classified and identified as open space. And that's up to each community to determine what we would consider that. You know, in Braintree, we might say it's 5 acres or 3 acres or 10 acres. The fundamental benefit that open space, I think we all appreciate the benefits of open space. Generally, it's available to property owners under Chapter 61, recreation and forestry and agricultural. In addition to that, we don't value property on its ultimate potential. As you know, as an appraiser might, that's the difference between assessing and appraising. So if you've got 10 acres, we don't assume that you could put 14 houses on there or some projection. We use frontage lots and then we have excess value. So that's how the Department of Revenue guides us. So we don't value in a way that pressures people to maybe develop open space. I think I looked today, there is only one community that actually classifies open space out of the 351 cities and towns, which surprised me. And that's Bedford, Mass. And I figured it'd be somewhere more out west. But I think we're mostly a developed town. I don't think that benefit would be realized in the town.
Okay, thank you. And now it's always a little bit confusing with the use of a parcel versus the zoning of a parcel, right? So you could have a parcel that is zoned commercial and they develop housing on it, and then it's assessed as housing and taxed as such. And so it's similar question for if we did have something designated as open space, would it matter whether it is zoned as open space or just being used as open space?
That's a fair question. So I suppose if we defined X amount of properties to be class 2 or anything fitting, say, over 5 acres, vacant land over 5 acres, then the zoning and assessing are a strange fit sometimes, because you know you might have a home that is in a commercial zone. We value it for what its use is. So vacant use versus improved or non-conforming. We just call it as we see it. I don't think I answered the open space part of that properly, but
no,
it's getting kind of.
I get it.
Okay.
So it would
right,
depend
thanks.
on the use of the property as open space, wouldn't necessarily have to be reflected in the zoning.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. All right, that's it.
so.
Thank you.
Sure.
Chief of Staff Taub, did you have something to add?
I just wanted to say, because I asked a similar question about the open space, and I think, you know, we tend to use open space as a term of art, and I think it means one thing in the zoning context, or we talk about the creation of open space or community preservation in open space, but from a tax perspective, it means something, it's a different classification altogether. So I think the terminology that we're used to using open space in association with is different here, because I was surprised to see we didn't have any land classified as open space. And I thought, well, that doesn't sound quite right. But in the tax context, it's a little different, which is why it wouldn't apply to any of the land that we have here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Flaherty.
Thank you. I just have a question about the nuts and bolts of how the the rate is calculated. In looking at the chart that was supplied to us, I think by Ed Spellman, I can see that the 175% shift has residential property paying $9.96 per $1,000, and commercial and industrial is paying $21.85. But I just don't, and I think it's because I'm misunderstanding something, and that's what I'd like to have cleared up. When I find what 175% of 996 is, I come to 1743. So I'm asking how the numbers represent 175%.
I think if you were to look at the chart on the second page, if you look, that's at the 100% with no shift. If there was just one tax rate, the tax rate would be at $12.44.
Yep.
And if you were to start at that point and build the shift, that's how you would go from there up to the 175% for the commercial industrial.
Okay. So it's just a different way of looking at how you build to the 175%. I see.
We generally start with just the one rate, and from there we go and can figure out or do the scenarios of the 125% shift, 150, and then the maximum 175.
Okay, thank you.
Any other counselors have questions on the tax rate? Counselor Ryan?
I just want to thank Ed Spellman and Bob Brinkmann and the Board of Assessors for all the work they do on this. We have one of the best tax rates on the South Shore. And every time I vote to shift the 175%, the full extent to away from the residential onto the commercial, because we are impacted by businesses in this community. And it might be a little less this year up at the South Shore Plaza, where everybody's probably buying everything at home online. But sometimes when you try to drive from one end of town to the other, it could take you a very long time, and it's all related to businesses in the town. So I have no problem doing the tax shift. I think it's very appropriate, and I'm glad we once again recommended that by the Board of Assessors, and I will be supporting all of these motions. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Ryan. Shawn, did you have anything to add or ask?
No, nothing really to add, just that this is consistent with prior years in terms of the debt shift. And if a debt shift, a tax rate shift was not done, then yes, you would see a significant increase on individuals' residential tax rates, without a doubt.
Yep, thank you very much. And I just actually, Bob, if you or your team wouldn't mind, maybe you could just take a minute or two, especially, I know this is the first time I've gone through the tax rate with a fine-tooth comb. Can you just give us a quick primer on how it sounds like you actually go out and look at properties, how the assessments are done. I know that we're going to end up I've already gotten some questions about it. That would be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. It's really a year-long process in general, but we review any and all sales that come through town. So in 2019, or for this analysis period, we sent over 600 sales that were reviewed to the Department of Revenue to have them review, which allows us to make our adjustments, market adjustments. So we see different neighborhoods and different styles and ages and classes, and we review that, and then we go out and collect. We follow up on building permits. We go out and make sure they're done. They're complete, 100% complete. They're 50% complete. We also do periodic inspections on properties, just data quality data on a 9-year cycle. So we go out and we review the market, we review the what's happened, we're reviewing vacancies in commercial properties or rents in commercial properties and so forth. Once we determine the values, then we know what the base is, and then we take the tax levy, which council has voted on a budget. Ed and Mark Lynn and Nicole and others work on estimating the receipts, other receipts, motor vehicle excise, all sorts of things, permits and other fees. We put it all together, and we subtract those other revenues, and we determine what we need to raise in taxes. This year it's 99,317,000 and change. So it's a simple calculation from there, in the sense that we divide the total value of the town divided by the total levy of the town, or the amount we need to raise in taxes. And then we come to Ways and Means and or council, and then council, and see if we're going to do the traditional shift, which we've done, I know, a number of years. So predates me. Hopefully that gives you an overview of our process.
Thank you. And the Patriot Properties website that can be accessed from the town website, when is that updated for residents?
It's updated once a year. So, we've got the live database in the office, obviously, with changes and new owners and additions and so forth. But the values that were certified by the Department of Revenue last month, those are the values that are the final values for 2021. And that's what goes into Patriot Properties.
So if people went and wanted to estimate their tax bill, if they went in and looked at their assessed value, it's accurate for next year right now?
It's not.
Okay.
Until we've got everything certified. We generally do that after the Department of Revenue signs off on the tax rate and so forth. It's probably good to note that the Ways and Means and Town Council is voting on a shift rather than a rate. We're projecting the rate. We would expect that that's exactly what it'll be, but that will be determined by the Department of Revenue.
Thank you. That is super helpful. Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I want to echo what Councilor Ryan said. I think, when I think about the services that we provide to our residents in this town, the rate we pay is an absolute bargain, especially compared to the surrounding communities on the South Shore. And that's in no small part to the work that you do, Bob, and your team, and all of the residents for doing their part and paying their share to the biggest component of the town's budget. So thank you to everybody for all the effort and work.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing none. Do we have a motion on 20078?
I'd like to make a motion. I'm going to read them 4 times, 4 votes. To apply the tax rate classification shift. A motion, be it ordained that the town of Braintree through the Braintree Town Council adopt the recommendation of the mayor and the Board of Assessors to approve the classification tax rate shift of 175% to be applied to commercial, industrial, and personal property.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Clerk Semino, roll call vote, please.
Council Verica,
Yes.
Council Ryan,
Aye.
Council Connors,
Aye.
Council Flaherty,
Yes.
Council Sasha.
Yes.
It's 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you.
Make a motion for 20078 for small business exemption. Motion to approve the small business exemption as recommended by the Board of Assessors in a memorandum to the Town Council dated November 17th, 2020, and as filed with the Office of the Town Clerk.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Council Verica,
Yes.
Council Ryan,
Aye.
Council Connors,
Aye.
Counselor Flaherty,
Yes.
Counselor Sasha,
Yes.
5 in favor, 0 opposed.
For the open space discount, under 20078, I make a motion to continue to adopt the recommendation of the mayor and the Board of Assessors as outlined in a memorandum to the town council dated November 17th, 2020, and as filed with the office of the town clerk to decline the open space discount.
Second,
Clerk Semina, roll call vote?
Counselor Baraka,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
aye.
Counselor Connors,
Aye.
Counselor Flaherty,
Yes.
Counselor Sasha.
Yes.
That's 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
For the residential exemption, under 20078, make a motion to continue to adopt the recommendation of the mayor and the Board of Assessors as outlined in a memorandum dated November 17, 2020, and as filed with the office of the town clerk to decline the adoption of the residential exemption.
Second,
Roll call vote, please?
Counselor Baraka,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
aye.
Counselor Connors,
Aye.
Counselor Flaherty,
Yes.
Counselor Sasha.
Yes.
That's 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you all very much. Okay, so the final item on our agenda, we do not have the appointee with us tonight. So do we have a motion to table this?
I would make a motion to table item 20079 until the next Ways and Means Committee meeting or whenever the appointee can be present.
Second,
Thank you, Counselor Connors. Clerk Semino, do we need a specific date?
I'm just going to continue with the roll call, and we do not need a.
Okay, yep, thank you.
Counselor Baraka,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
aye.
Counselor Connors,
Aye.
Counselor Flaherty,
Yes.
Counselor Sasha.
Yes.
5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you very much. That, I believe, is it for this evening, or for the first part of our evening, for the council meeting at 7:30, when there will be public hearings on these, the tax issues we voted on earlier tonight. So with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I don't need a script for that. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, you messed me up, Charlie. I already had it written in that Donna did that. Counselor Baraka,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Counselor Connors,
Aye.
Counselor Flaherty,
Yes.
Counselor Sasha.
Yes.
5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
See
you.
at
See you in a
7:30.
bit.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you in a little while. So,
Charlie, call me.
all right, can you email me the,
Mhm.
can
I
you?
will.
All right, thanks.